Hey people, welcome to the second part of my drum cover series. In this video I would like to explain to you how I learned the song Lifnej by the band The Hirsch Effekt from Hanover, Germany with drummer Moritz Schmidt and what I learned in the process. As always, I very much hope that you can draw something for yourselves from my insights. You can find the link to the cover and the drums only version in the description below. By the way, this song is a relatively extreme progressive metal song. For those of you who are not really into this style of music, don't worry, there will be a few more songs from this genre, but I will also play other styles, and I hope that you can still get something for yourself from these videos. In this series, I learn each song with a different method in order to experience firsthand what the advantages and disadvantages are and how well it works for me. Since the band released songbooks, I learned this song from sheet music. In contrast to the first part of this series, in which I learned the song Fisheye by the band Shining only by ear. If you haven't seen the video, you can watch it again here. I think that without sheet music, I wouldn't have been able to play the song like that at all, because I practice every song until every single note is played exactly as in the original. If I hit the low crash instead of the high one in minute 5, I will start over. It's not pedantry or the belief that the song will only sound good then, but it's the clear benchmark. If I do it this way with all songs, I have a better comparison. I also test my memory in this way and find out how well each method helps me to really memorize the song. And this song is really very complex and has so many details that I couldn't have heard all of them. So I was happy to be able to simply use the songbook as a guide. That is one of the many advantages of sheet music. Often we are demotivated if we do not know exactly what to do, even if the task is not that difficult. Practicing with sheet music gets you in the flow. Even if you have to practice very slowly, you have the goal clearly in front of your eyes. Plus, I don't have to keep starting and stopping the music like last time. I practice the notes until I can play the part at the original tempo and only then play it to the music. More on why this is so good in a moment. First, the bare numbers again as a comparison to the other parts of this series. Due to the speed, the many time changes and technically very demanding passages, I would rate this song at 9 out of 10 in terms of difficulty. It's 6 minutes and 42 seconds long, almost as long as Fisheye in part 1. It took me 4,319 minutes to learn the song, so about 72 hours. So 3 times as long as Fisheye, and so we have a ratio of 1 to 645. So 645 times the length of the song until it was recorded. By the way, I count all the times I consciously spent with the song, on the drums or not, maybe just memorizing the song, and when I'm practicing, I also keep the timer running during the breaks. So a whole practice session, because mostly they were active processing pauses and are therefore part of the process. In addition, it is always a motivation for me when I digress. Watch out, time is still running. I knew this song but had never played it before, so I would say that the bass line was a maximum of 5%. I also took some time counting how many notes there actually were in the whole song. It's 3,823. By the way, that's an average of 10 hits per second over the course of the whole song, some of which are of course simultaneous. So it took me a little over a minute per note on average to memorize this song. But that's not really an indicator of how well my method worked, but rather of the difficulty of the song. That effort now seems rather disproportionate to learn only one song from an album. That's also my criticism of drum covers, but at the same time also the benefit. The musicians wrote the song or is developed organically, and this usually takes less time than understanding what exactly is going on in a piece afterwards. Re-engineering it, because Moritz has certainly played some things that suit him, that fall into his hands, so to speak. so that he doesn't have to think about it anymore. But now I have to learn what he played intuitively and therefore need a lot longer. I have seen myself preparing pieces for a tour that I recorded years ago. Listening to it and practicing it again often takes longer than it took me to develop and record this song in the studio in the first place, because I was there in the creation process and played it intuitively. When it comes to drum covers, we should always keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily make sense to slavishly replay every note, because a lot of it may even be improvised. Otherwise, we fall into the illusion that recordings are final and perfect, even though it is often just a snapshot. The advantage, however, is that you gain a new perspective when you put yourself in exactly such a moment by slipping into the role of a musician for a certain time, and thus being able to feel a little what their approach is. You replay what someone else has played intuitively and thereby expand your own abilities and your view on the music, walking a mile in some other person's shoes. But now let's look specifically at my learning process. Roughly speaking, it had 7 phases that were about the same length. In the first phase, I had to get an overview, try around a little, and then also see how I set up my drum kit in order to be able to play everything as well and as efficiently as possible, and of course to select the cymbals and snare accordingly. I also created the tempo map in my software. It took a couple of hours, but it went very well because I got a click track from Moritz in addition to the original tracks. So again, many thanks to Moritz and the whole band, the Hirsch Effekt, for their trust and support. After I had an overview, I started to work specifically on the more difficult parts. It was a very pleasant process. On the one hand, because I progressed relatively quickly, and on the other hand, because the sheet music is very well arranged, so it was easy to read, and mostly a part of the song was on a page or a double page. So I was able to internalize the song structure very well. But sometimes I had to turn the page. There were 11 pages for this song alone, which of course hindered me a bit. And since I wanted to play the whole song in one piece at some point, I actually photocopied everything and glued it onto a large piece of cardboard. So I was able to practice at individual points, but always had the big picture in mind, literally. In the third phase, I was so advanced that I could play most of the difficult parts at 80% of the speed, but in some parts I reached my technical limit. So just repeating the passages over and over would not have helped. I had to do specific technical exercises to get up to speed. In the fourth phase, I felt like I was on the home stretch. I could play the song at 80% of the speed, the whole song. And in the fifth phase, however, I plateaued and had to go to the workbench again to increase the speed in some technically very advanced passages. I had hoped to be able to record this song between tours, but had misjudged myself a little. Of course, it was great to be out and play again and make a living from it, but I had to put the song on the back burner for a few weeks. But there were no major breaks like with the first song in the series. These 72 hours were not spread over several months as with Fisheye, but over several weeks. But maybe a little break was a good thing, because in the next phase I changed my method a little bit. I only played the song at the original tempo in order to have a realistic comparison, and then worked specifically on the passages that still gave me problems. That has always shown me where I stand, and above all, that I will soon be there. Seventh and final phase. I made a test recording and was actually surprised how good it already sounded. So now I just had to polish it up a little bit and learn it by heart until the final recording. At the very end, I decided to simplify 2 short double bass drum passages because I had failed too often and had already started getting used to the mistake. So I played 12 of the almost 4,000 notes differently on the recording. I hope you will forgive me for this. How did I experience the learning process, and what kind of knowledge did I draw from it? First of all, I learned a lot through this project. One of the most important realizations was that you should not play the song slower. I played the whole song at 80% speed, then 81, then 82, and I wanted to go up to 100%. Because I then ran into a tempo barrier, I played the song very often at, let's say, 85%. So I've actually internalized the song in that tempo. Then, when I heard it at the original tempo,
I felt like it was too fast because I got used to the slow tempo. I no longer had a realistic starting value.
I wanted to learn the song as a whole, and that's a good idea, but if I slow down the song and play it all the way through, it's like playing a completely different song. We need a realistic target actual value comparison. For that, we have to play the song at the original tempo, even if we make mistakes. Then we work without music, with a metronome, at these points and bring them up to speed. And then we play the song again, so we can always see if and how much we are getting closer to our goal. When we slow down the song, we train and actually consolidate the tempo we are at right now. We don't feel that we need to increase the tempo because we find that we already can get through the song. It's like turning back the clock when you're late. We have to orient ourselves towards the actual target value so that we can see clearly and honestly where we are and pull ourselves up to it. That was an important finding. This is how I practice from now on and also with my students. It is also less efficient to practice the entire song over and over again, because we then keep repeating what we can already play. We should only play to the music to see where we are and then take the things we can't execute yet one by one, repeat them very often until we can. After all, if there's a pothole, you shouldn't re-tar the whole road, even if it might be fun to drive the big roller. That's anything but efficient. One of the most important learning methods on the drums is practicing the individual voices. I have already spoken about this several times on this channel, and here I have again found out for myself how helpful this method is. There is a fairly fast and complex part in 7/8 in Lifnej between 1 minute 19 and 1:46. It didn't run smoothly until the end. It didn't sound confident because my limbs were not yet independent. So I played each hand and foot separately to the metronome until I got up to the original tempo. So I was able to concentrate fully on the individual limbs, identify sources of error, and solve the errors. In the end, it was much smoother, more confident, faster, and more pleasant. It remains one of the most important exercises because you learn more sustainably, improve your independence, and play more confidently. It's difficult because sometimes you need the other limbs for comparison, but that is exactly what shows us where there are still dependencies between the limbs. Ideally, we can play each individual voice, each individual limb independently to the metronome, and even better, to counting ourselves. This is the ultimate test of whether you have internalized something. Then, when you put it together, it will always sound much better because you are in control of the individual elements. Another thing that I noticed here again is that perfectionism is paralyzing. Anyone who blames a single detail for the overall success will never finish. The overall success is made up of many small successes that don't have to be perfect. It is better to meet the deadline and leave out a few notes, because after that comes the next project that helps you improve and grow. If I had tried to play that one double bass drum part perfectly, it would have taken me a lot longer. Now I've already finished the next song, which will be out soon, because I'm not forcing myself to reach a completely arbitrary benchmark. Setting goals is important, and finishing what you started is also good and important. But the goals must be realistic and actionable. And above all, they must be connectable. That is, they should be just outside of what is now possible for you. I'll keep that in mind when choosing songs in the future, by the way. But this project showed me that with the right motivation and the right learning methods, it is possible to do a lot that previously seemed impossible, especially if you break it down into small tasks. And with regard to the learning method, i.e. using the songbook, I can still say that I find it very pleasant. It was easy for me to link the sheet music with the song parts. I didn't have to spend any time or energy trying to hear what is being played in the song, and I was able to practice with or without a metronome until I got it. I didn't always have to start and stop the music. I could have practiced even more on individual details from the start. Since I can sight read very well, it tempted me to always practice whole parts of the song instead of zooming into the problem areas. So in the future, I will practice with an even greater focus on the problems. Those were my experiences and insights. Against the background of all this, watch the cover again and tell me in the comments what from this you have already experienced yourself and how you can most effectively learn a song. In the next part, I will cover a song by Ishan from Norway. Which one exactly? You will see. So if you haven't already, you should subscribe right now and also activate the notification bell so that you don't miss a new video. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care and bye-bye.